My parents kicked me out for saying no to babysitting, so I got my own place. Posted about it online, and the internet backed me loudly. I'm a 22-year-old woman, and if I'm being completely honest, I've never really felt like a daughter in my own home. From the time I was 13, I stopped being the kid and became the built-in babysitter. My parents had 2 more kids after me, and somehow, in their eyes, my teenage years, my plans, and even my feelings just stopped mattering. It started small. Can you watch your brother while I run to the store? But then it turned into hours, then weekends, then whole summers. My friends would text me about sleepovers, movie nights, or even school dances, and I'd have to reply with the same excuse over and over. Sorry, can't watching the kids. It wasn't even a question most days. It was just assumed that I'd sacrifice whatever I was doing because, well, family comes first. I remember once asking, timidly, why do I always have to watch them? Can't you just hire someone? My mom's face hardened instantly. Do you think we're made of money? Your family. Babysitting is what big sisters do. My dad chimed in too, shaking his head with disappointment. Stop being dramatic. You should be grateful you even live here rent-free. The worst part wasn't even missing out on fun. It was the feeling that my existence only mattered when it was convenient for them. That my value to my parents was measured in how many hours I could keep my siblings fed and quiet. I started to resent the sound of the front door slamming shut, because it always meant I was locked in for another night of responsibility I never agreed to. I told myself it couldn't get worse, that one day they'd realize I was more than a babysitter. But that illusion shattered the night I said no for the very first time. It happened on a Friday night. I'd been looking forward to it all week because my manager had finally given me the chance to stay late and prove myself at work. It wasn't just overtime. It was a real opportunity to show I could handle responsibility and maybe earn a promotion. I'd even bought a new blouse with the little bit of money I had saved up. That morning, as I grabbed my bag to leave, my mom stopped me in the hallway. You'll be home by 5, right? I need you to watch the kids tonight. I froze. My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to breathe. I can't tonight, Mom. I have to stay late for work. Her face immediately soured. What do you mean you can't? We already told your aunt we'd go to dinner. Then take the kids with you, I said quietly. My voice shook, but inside something in me was boiling. I can't miss this chance at work. It's important. The silence that followed was heavy, like the air itself had weight. Then my dad's voice cut through, sharp and cold. Unbelievable. After everything we've done for you, you can't do this one thing for family? I tried to hold my ground. It's not one thing, Dad, it's every night. Every weekend. I'm drowning here, my mom's eyes narrowed. So you think you're too good for us now? Too important to help your own family? The argument spiraled quickly, their voices overlapping, mine barely heard. I felt like a criminal on trial for daring to say no. I wanted to scream that I was tired, that I was more than their babysitter, but my throat locked up, and all I managed was, I can't. My dad's hand slammed against the table. Then you can get out. The words hit me harder than a slap, echoing in my ears like a sentence I couldn't appeal. I stood there frozen, my dad's words hanging in the air like smoke from a fire I didn't start. Then you can get out. I thought he was bluffing. Parents don't actually mean that, right? But the look in his eyes told me this wasn't a threat. It was an order. My mom crossed her arms, her lips a thin line. You're an adult now, aren't you? Adults take care of themselves. You want freedom? Go find it. I felt my knees tremble. You're really kicking me out? Over babysitting? My voice cracked, but neither of them softened. Dad didn't even look at me as he said, pack your things before dinner. I stumbled back to my room, the walls closing in. The posters I'd taped up as a teenager stared back at me like ghosts of the life I'd missed. My hands shook as I stuffed clothes into a duffel bag. No plan, no place to go. The sound of my little brother's cartoons in the living room felt surreal, like I was already a stranger in my own house. As I zipped the bag, my mom appeared in the doorway. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just said, maybe this will teach you some gratitude, and then turned away. I wanted to beg. To promise I'd watch them tonight, tomorrow, every night if it meant not being thrown out. But something inside me snapped. I realized I wasn't just losing a home. I'd lost a family long ago. They'd only kept me around for labor. I slung the bag over my shoulder and walked past them without another word. The cool night air outside hit my face, sharp and biting, as if the world itself was warning me how cold it would be from now on. I had nowhere to go, and less than $50 in my bank account. And yet as the door shut behind me, the silence felt different, heavy, but also strangely free. That's when my phone buzzed with a text from my only friend who knew what was happening. The text was from my friend Maddie. "If they really kicked you out, come here." "I mean it." I stared at the screen through blurry eyes. My duffel felt like it weighed 100 pounds. I didn't even know where Maddie lived exactly, just that it was across town, and I didn't have bus fare. But walking was better than begging to go back. It took me over an hour to reach her place, dragging the bag over cracked sidewalks, passing streetlights that buzzed louder than my own thoughts. When I knocked on her door, she didn't ask questions, just opened her arms. "You look like you've been through hell," she whispered. "I think I left it," I muttered. Her couch became my new world. I slept in my clothes, hugging my backpack like a security blanket. Maddie's tiny studio wasn't made for guests, and I hated feeling like a burden, but she never treated me like one. She let me cry without asking me to explain. She made me soup from instant noodles and offered me her last clean towel like it was no big deal. Still, I couldn't stop the guilt that followed me everywhere. Not for leaving, but for how fast my parents moved on. They didn't call, not once. They didn't check to see if I had food, if I was safe, if I was even alive. Instead, they posted a picture of a family dinner 2 nights later, smiling like nothing had changed. Then came the messages from my aunt. "Heard you just ran off and left them struggling. Your poor mom is doing everything herself." The narrative was being rewritten, and I was suddenly the villain, not the daughter they kicked out, but the selfish traitor who abandoned her family. I thought things would feel clearer once I got out. But instead I felt more invisible than ever. That's when I made a decision. If they weren't going to tell the truth, I would. I didn't post anything right away. I wasn't ready, but something shifted inside me after a week of sleeping on Maddie's couch, hearing the quiet hum of her fridge at night instead of screaming kids and guilt trips. For the first time in years, I could just exist. I got a job bussing tables at a small diner a few blocks away. It wasn't glamorous, long hours, grease in my hair, aching feet, but the paycheck was mine. Every dollar felt like proof that I wasn't helpless, that I could build something for myself. Maddie wouldn't accept rent, but I started buying groceries when I could. I learned how to budget, how to stretch a bag of rice for days. I even fixed her leaky bathroom faucet after watching YouTube tutorials for hours. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Still, every time I walked past families at the diner, moms laughing with daughters, dads helping toddlers cut pancakes, something twisted in my chest. I tried not to think about what my parents were saying behind my back. But then I saw it. A post from my mom on Facebook. "Rough few weeks, but the family always sticks together." Some people forget where they come from. Over 100 likes. A stream of sympathy comments. My aunt chiming in again. "You've done everything for her." It's heartbreaking. They were painting me as ungrateful, entitled, and cold. They were rewriting the entire story. That night, I sat on Maddie's floor with my back against the wall and opened a blank post on Reddit. I typed slowly at first, unsure of where to start. But once the words came, they poured out of me like a flood. I didn't use names. I didn't attack anyone. I just told the truth. I clicked post, heart racing, then turned off my phone and buried it under a pillow. I didn't expect what happened next. I didn't check Reddit for nearly a full day. I was too anxious, too scared that no one would care, or worse, that they'd agree with my parents. But when I finally opened the app, I blinked in disbelief. Over 4,000 upvotes, hundreds of comments, messages from complete strangers saying, "I went through this too," and "You're not wrong for choosing yourself." It felt like oxygen after years of drowning. One comment hit me especially hard. "You were the parentified child. They exploited you. You didn't fail them, they failed you." That word, parentified, hit like a punch. I didn't even know there was a term for what they did to me. But the more I read, the more I saw myself in every story, every heartbreak, every thread, and then things started to change. A woman messaged me saying she had a spare room for cheap rent just outside the city. She followed my story and said, "You seem like someone who deserves a fresh start." Maddie helped me vet her, and we visited the place together. It was small, yes, but clean, quiet, and most importantly, mine. I used every dollar I'd saved from the diner job to cover the deposit and the first month. I didn't even have a bed, just an air mattress and a milk crate for a nightstand. But standing in that empty room with my duffel bag on the floor, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. I took a selfie. No makeup, just me in that sunlit apartment. And I captioned it. "Got my own place after being kicked out for saying no to babysitting." It's small, but it's all mine. I almost didn't post it, but I did. And within an hour, it blew up. Thousands of likes. People cheering me on, sharing their stories, calling me brave. But not everyone was clapping, because my family saw it too. The post didn't just go viral. It detonated. I was getting tagged on platforms I hadn't even used in months. TikTok edits, Instagram reshares, my story was everywhere. People were calling me strong, calling out toxic parents, sharing their own escape stories. I should have felt empowered. I really should have. But all it took was one text from my mom to remind me I was still tethered to the people who broke me. Her message. Just 5 words. Delete that post, now. No, how are you? No apology. No explanation, just control. Still trying to manage my choices from a distance. Then came the calls, from relatives I barely spoke to. My aunt left a voicemail that was half sob, half sermon. "You humiliated your family. Your poor mother hasn't stopped crying. Why would you shame us like this in public?" Even my younger cousin messaged me. "My mom says you're making things up for attention. They weren't even asking what happened." They had already picked a side. And it wasn't mine. My dad didn't text. He emailed. Cold, professional. This kind of online smear campaign may seem fun now, but actions have consequences. "We raised you. You owe us more than this." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Owe them? For what? Shelter in exchange for servitude? Childhood traded for free childcare? But their anger wasn't the worst part. It was how fast they turned my siblings against me. My little brother, only 10, left a voice message that shattered me. "Mom says you hate us now." "Why'd you leave?" That broke me in a way no adult could. Because I didn't leave him. I was pushed out. And now they were feeding him lies I couldn't untell. I sat on the floor of my tiny apartment that night shaking. Not from fear, but from grief. From the realization that I might have lost more than just a family home. And then came the knock at my door. The knock was slow, deliberate. I peeked through the peephole and froze. My mom, my dad, standing there like they owned the sidewalk, like they hadn't thrown me out just weeks ago. I didn't want to open the door. Every instinct screamed, "Don't let them in." But I couldn't help it. Part of me still wanted to believe they came to apologize. That they missed me. That they finally saw me. I cracked the door just enough. "What are you doing here?" My mom's voice was sweet, fake sweet. That syrupy tone she used when she was about to snap. "We thought it was time to bring you home." "Enough of this drama, don't you think?" I blinked. "Bring me home?" "You kicked me out," she laughed. "Oh, come on." We were upset. "You overreacted. Now you've made a public mess, and your father's job is getting heat because of that post." Dad stepped forward, voice flat. "You'll delete it, apologize, move back in. We'll start fresh, but you'll keep your mouth shut about family matters moving forward." It wasn't a conversation. It was a directive. "I'm not coming back," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My mom's face twisted. "Don't be stupid. You think this," she waved toward my apartment, "is better than your family?" "Yes," I whispered. That single word lit the fuse. She called me ungrateful. A brat, a manipulative liar. Said I had embarrassed them beyond repair. Said I owed them my entire life. And still, I stood in the doorway, unmoving, numb, until Dad leaned in and muttered, "If you don't fix this, we're cutting you off." For good. My laugh surprised even me. "Cut me off from what?" "You already did." I shut the door slowly, deliberately, with their angry faces still staring through the gap. And then I collapsed against the wall, sliding to the floor, sobbing so hard my ribs ached. That night I didn't feel strong. I felt shattered. But I also knew something now. There was no going back. I didn't sleep that night. My body was exhausted, but my mind was wide awake, buzzing, unraveling, rewinding every word they'd said. Every guilt trip, every manipulation that had been so deeply woven into my childhood, I hadn't even realized it was abuse. By sunrise, I picked up my phone with shaking hands and opened Reddit again. My post had exploded even more overnight. Over 20,000 upvotes, thousands of comments. But what caught me off guard weren't the numbers. It was the sheer rawness of the replies. People didn't just sympathize. They related. They felt what I felt. I thought I was alone until I read this. I'm 32 and still living in fear of my parents' approval. You're brave. You didn't deserve any of this. You were a child doing adult work. A woman even shared how her parents forced her to raise her siblings, too. How she escaped, rebuilt, and eventually cut contact. Another person messaged me privately and offered to help me find therapy resources for parentified survivors. I was stunned. I'd spent so long thinking no one would ever believe me, that my parents' version of events would always be louder, but the internet believed me. Even small creators started talking about my post on TikTok and YouTube, stitching their own stories, dissecting the emotional abuse behind what my parents did. Some tagged me. Others simply said, "Whoever this girl is, I hope she knows she's not alone." For the first time in my life, the world didn't feel like a trap I had to navigate in silence. The louder the support grew online, the angrier my family became offline. My cousin messaged me again, begging me to take the post down before things get worse. But I wasn't scared anymore, because strangers, complete, faceless strangers, had done more to lift me up in 48 hours than my family had in 22 years, and I wasn't done telling my truth. I used to think my parents' version of events would always win, polished, rehearsed, repeated until it became the truth. They were pros at curating the perfect family image. Holiday cards with matching outfits, Facebook albums labeled "Blessed Beyond Measure," church potlucks where my mom played the martyr, and my dad told dad jokes like he didn't control every room with a look. But this time, people weren't buying it. The Reddit post found its way into private family group chats. I hadn't shared it there, but someone did. Probably one of the cousins who'd been quietly watching from the sidelines. Suddenly, the silence from extended family turned into cautious curiosity. My uncle messaged me. Not to shame me, but to ask if it was true. He'd always been distant, but now he admitted he'd wondered for years why I looked so sad at family gatherings. My grandma even called me. Not to defend my parents, but to say, "You always did more than a kid should have." I see that now. It was surreal, like someone had flipped a switch. Even people from church began commenting subtle things on my mom's posts. "Hope you're giving your daughter the space she needs." Every story has two sides. And just like that, the cracks in their image started to show. My mom posted a long status filled with vague quotes about betrayal and how social media is poisoning young minds. She never named me, but everyone knew. My dad went quiet, unusual for him. I didn't clap back. I didn't post any more details. I didn't have to. The truth had already traveled farther than their denial ever could. And for once, I wasn't the only one carrying it. Still, I knew it wasn't over. Because something was building inside me, not just grief, not just rage, something sharper, something ready to confront everything they'd tried to bury. It didn't happen in a dramatic showdown. There was no screaming match in a parking lot or tearful reunion in a coffee shop. It happened in my apartment, my space, my rules. My parents showed up again. No warning, no call. Just a knock and two familiar faces I barely recognized anymore. My first instinct was to ignore it. Let them knock until they gave up. But something inside me whispered, "It's time." I opened the door, but only halfway. They stood there stiffly. My mom in her pearls like this was Sunday brunch. My dad holding a folded piece of paper like a lawyer about to serve me. "We want to clear the air," my mom said with a forced smile. "This whole thing has gotten out of hand." She meant I had gotten out of hand. Dad unfolded the paper and read from it. We expect you to delete all public posts defaming this family, retract your statements, and issue an apology. I looked at them both. These people who raised me, fed me, clothed me, and still managed to make me feel like an outsider in my own childhood. I stepped back, opened the door fully, and pointed to the bare apartment. "This is my life now," I said, voice steady. No babysitting, no guilt trips, no silence. My mom's smile cracked. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said calmly. "I'm being free," my dad scoffed. "You think you're so righteous because strangers online clapped for you?" "No," I replied, "because I finally clapped for myself." They stood frozen for a moment, unsure of how to respond to a version of me that didn't bend. I didn't slam the door this time. I closed it gently, firmly, and for the first time, I didn't cry after. I stood in the middle of that little apartment, still with no couch, still eating dollar store ramen, and felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace, but there was still one more thing I had to say, to myself and to the little girl I used to be. Some nights I still wake up half expecting to hear my little brother crying, or my mom shouting for me to make yourself useful. The silence in my apartment used to feel haunting. Now it feels like safety. I started going to therapy, something I never thought I could afford, let alone deserve. My therapist was the first person to say out loud, "You were emotionally neglected." I didn't believe her at first, but each session peeled back another layer I'd been taught to ignore. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't selfish. I wasn't ungrateful. I was a child who was never allowed to be a child, and I wasn't alone. Every day, I get messages from people, some 16, some 40, telling me they lived the same story. Some are still living it. Some don't have a Maddie to crash with. Some don't have a Reddit post that went viral. But I tell them the same thing. You're not crazy. You're not broken. And walking away doesn't make you the villain. Last week, I bought a tiny secondhand couch off Facebook Marketplace. It's hideous, brown velvet with mismatched legs, but it's mine. I carried it up 2 flights of stairs by myself. The woman I bought it from smiled and said, "Looks like you're starting a new chapter." I think she was right. I still miss my siblings. I probably always will. But I'm learning that missing someone doesn't mean you owe them your life. I've stopped checking my parents' Facebook. I've stopped waiting for their apology, because I don't need it anymore. I posted a new photo yesterday. Me, sitting on my ugly couch, sipping tea in the sunlight. No caption, just peace. And someone commented, "This picture feels like healing." I smiled, because it is, and for the first time in a very long time. I'm proud of the girl who finally said no.